do believe we need to hold 2024 accountable for its behavior. That is what white women do now. We point out other things that are toxic because we don't get ironies, and that is our truth. This was the year that people were behaving so poorly, we started being wistful about murderers. Remember, this was the year we were like, were the Menendez brothers so bad? Were we too hard on the Menendez brothers? This was the year we could not get enough of murderers. Gypsy Rose became our favorite celebrity because murdering your mom is so brat. They had her on a red carpet, a little on the nose for a murderer, but she was like posing in a fancy dress. We were like, slay, and she was like, I did. And of course, our heartthrob of the year was the alleged cold-blooded killer named Luigi, who is now in the same prison as Diddy, which I'm very upset about because Luigi already has a lower back issue. This was the year nothing made sense. Fertility was down, sales of baby oil was up, white supremacy groups reached record highs. It got so bad, Ariana Grande became white again. 2024 totally broke our brains. Half the people I know think we're in a simulation. I'm starting to wonder. When I go to a website and it asks me if I'm a robot or not, half the time I get the quiz wrong. I'm like, does the shadow of a bike count as a bike? I don't know. Why am I looking at a grainy photo of a crack house? We just all broke mentally this year. Things got so bleak, we started watching the WNBA. 2024 election fried our brains. The Democrats couldn't hold a primary because they were too busy holding a body upright. Are we still rolling? Am I off?
Go for it.
It was amazing that the pro-choice party didn't give their voters one when it came to the presidential candidate. Kamala was forced on us so hard you'd think she was patented by Pfizer or Moderna, whichever one's. Oh God, Andy just gave me a very scary look.
No!
Let me be clear though. 2024 was not only negative. The media wants us to believe this country is so divided, but we actually came together a lot this year. Like as a nation, we unanimously agreed that we would rather see J-Lo in a toxic relationship than in concert. We all agreed the government totally knows what drones are and are telling us. The drones are still up there and we have no idea what's behind them. No idea. I mean, they're still up in the sky, so I guess we can rule out that they were made by Boeing. The point is, I think we all agree on a lot of things. And since I only have a minute left live on establishment media, why don't we just say a bunch of things that we know that they'll never cover? Okay, ready, go. Trump Jr. didn't have any silverware in his house. No one thought that was weird? Are we still rolling? Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia put money into Disney, so just know there won't be any girl characters in the next Cars movie. Are we still rolling? This is wild. Why have so many presidents' chefs died? Weird. Boy Scout of America, they renamed itself Scouting America. You know who else changed their name? Sean Combs. Just saying. Let's learn something in 2025. I can't believe you guys are still letting me go. This is amazing. I love CNN. Please stop me, Andy, because I will just keep going.
Happy New Year.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, Bernard Kerik on the latest from this week's terror attacks. Also, America First checks in Jacob Olidort and Rob Law. Payton McNabb with a heart-wrenching story of triumph. The Year in Parody Song review from Penn Holderness. And we name the top 5 finishers of the Song of the Year in the Spotlight. And now, from Times Square, where the NYPD did already know what to do with their concrete barriers, here's Happy New Year! Great to have you along. Welcome to the weekend, Kevin McCullough. Yes, Dave, you're right. The NYPD never in doubt of where to put their concrete barriers. They've often been in places I found inconvenient, but I was thankful for them because, and you know why I'm bringing that up, right? Because the chief of police or the superintendent for the NOPD, not to be confused with the NYPD, the NOPD, no PD. You're already starting with a deficit. You're in the South. Your initials are no. And you have a police superintendent who evidently doesn't know what the concrete barriers are for, or if she even had them. She literally didn't know. I didn't know we had them. Now that I know that we have them out. Little late. You've already got 15 dead in New Orleans, folks. My heart is torn, like everybody's is, for the families and their victims. Tonight, we're going to get to the bottom of it a little bit. Bernard Kerik's going to be here. But come on. You got to do better than that. You had the mayor of New Orleans a few years ago calling it the Chocolate City. And he kept all the school buses locked up when Katrina came in. And now you've got Dweedledee or Dweedledum. I'm not sure which Dweedle it is, but one of them in charge of the police department down there. It's a scary time to have incompetence at that level. I'm just saying. So anyway, welcome to the weekend. Glad to have you here, Kevin McCullough. Yes, Times Square. I did the Times Square New Year's Eve thing. Got a couple of pictures here. It was awesome. We were standing singing Auld Lang Syne and New York, New York, and It's a Wonderful World. What a Wonderful World, and Somewhere Over the Rainbow and all the rest of it. The traditional 4 or 5 songs. And I was told by Tom Harris of the Times Square Alliance that they had enough confetti to float down through all 4 of those songs. I didn't believe him. He was right. That place rained confetti for days. It's still coming down. Literally, I was doing the show last night, many hours after the end of New Year's Day, and my friend Christine Nicholas, who runs the Broadway Association, she was like, "Yeah, I was just walking out down the sidewalk this afternoon, and there was still more confetti coming down." They say it comes down until March. I don't know, but to get into Times Square, we had to go, of all the blocks, the city blocks in New York, you have to go to certain ones, and that's where they've got the entry points. And then at the entry points, you have to go through 3 or 4 checkpoints to get all the way into Times Square. And I tell you, we didn't know about New Orleans yet, didn't know anything about Vegas yet. I felt so safe. I felt so totally at peace and comfortable. And I just had if you see something, say something moment like a couple of weeks or about a week before that. So it wasn't that I wasn't on guard. It's just I felt the big sanitation trucks were out. Nobody was going to come charge Times Square. And they had the concrete barriers. They know what the concrete barriers are for. Gotta love the NYPD. Gotta not love the NOPD. Nope. The NOPDA. I don't like the NOPDA, but I like the NYPD. And I'm grateful that they're my police officers these days. And I say thank you. And you should too, even if you're in New Orleans. When you see a uniformed officer, go up, shake their hand, and say thank you for keeping me safe. Because as you can tell in these days that we live in, it is trying times. Now we've got a huge show for you tonight. Tonight we're going to count down the top 5 songs. We're only going to play you the top 2, but I am going to reveal out of the list of the 52 artists. The top 10 we posted last week, and you guys started voting on them, and we have the top 5 that we're going to reveal tonight. And I cannot wait because it was not the artists that ended up being the top 2 were not the ones I would have picked. They're not the ones I would have predicted that you would have picked, but I was so genuinely pleased that you did. In fact, it gave me a little bit of hope that maybe we're going to have a good year this year, 2025. Maybe the world's going to come together a little bit. Maybe we're going to solve some problems and get some things straightened out. I tend to be very pessimistic about it, but we'll see. But anyway, so if you're not familiar with the New Music Spotlight, it's our music artist each week, 52 different artists throughout the year. We had people voting on this, and the number 5 on the list was Gracie Abrams and Taylor Swift with the duet called Us. They did that at the Eras Tour. Gracie Abrams does it at her concerts. Number 4 was another duet. Just saying, this was the year of duets. I don't know what it was, but they hit. Ernest and Lainey Wilson, the 2 country artists, Gracie Abrams and Taylor Swift, of course, pop artists. Ernest and Lainey Wilson, country artist. What If I Could was number 4. And then the song that took the Christian world by storm this year, Megan Woods finished in 3rd place for our top number 3. She finished in number 3, but the top of these that we're going to reveal to you right now with her song called The Truth. It was on the charts for about 40 of the 52 weeks that the year of 2024 took over. So we had that. And I have to say thank you for something else. We asked you to help us free 208 slaves. Coming into the final week of the year, I was nervous about it. You helped us through your faithfulness get to 218. Thank you. Kevin McCullough, huge show. First one of 2024. Don't go.
From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Kevin McCullough from Times Square. Glad to have you with us, and also very glad to welcome back to the broadcast Bernard Kerik, who is the former NYPD police commissioner on 9/11. Commissioner, welcome back. Good to have you.
Thank you, Kevin.
What happened in New Orleans, and how were they able to pull it off? And why haven't the media made more of a connection with some of the obvious terrorist, what look like connections involved in the attack?
Well, listen, it's always easier to look at these things in the aftermath and figure it out. But I would say, given the amount of work that this guy put into this and the possible associates that are involved, I've heard different reports that there's 2, 3, maybe 4 other people involved. If that's the case, then there's a real question as to how did the intelligence apparatus not pick this up? How were these guys communicating? When were they communicating? Over what means? What's on their telecommunications networks? Things like that. A lot of this stuff you would think would have gotten picked up by some authority. The fact that this guy has been indoctrinated, to become an ISIS supporter is pretty wild when you look at his past history. He's born in the United States, lived in the U.S., lived in Texas, was served in the U.S. military for 10 years, I believe. There's been people interviewed. I've heard people talk about him that knew him while he was in the service, who were basically right now in disbelief, saying this is not the guy they knew. Well, if that's the case, and that's all real, then where did he get indoctrinated? How? Who was involved? Who's the people he's been hanging with? Because that's pretty important at this point.
Yeah. Let me ask you about the last time you were with us. Well, we've covered a lot of topics over the years, but on one specific time that you were with us a couple of years ago, we talked about the fact that the state of California had withdrawn itself from the Joint Terrorism Task Force, which was a mechanism that you helped establish with the Bush administration at the time to help federal authorities and local police understand and be prepared to deal with terror threats in advance of attacks happening. To my knowledge, that's the only state that has withdrawn from the Joint Terrorism Task Force. But is it possible that such, non-involvement on a state's behalf could launch more attacks like this? It seems to me that there was definitely a failure of people that would have been
trying to be knowledgeable about what is going on terror-wise, and the ability for him to just drive into a crowd of 15 people, kill them, and injure 25 more. Something definitely got dropped here.
Something got, you can't say it got dropped, but I find it hard to believe, Kev, that the intel agencies, be it the FBI, there's no indication at this point that he was on anyone's radar. But for him to put together a plan like this, especially if he was working in concert with others, that would really, really surprise me that they missed it, that somebody didn't pick it up somehow. This guy had to be talking to somebody, right? Had to be communicating with others. I don't know. And the fact that vehicle that he used was rented from the same rental agency that the Tesla truck used in Las Vegas. Both of those vehicles were rented from the same place. That's a little odd. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know. I
that
think
brings me to a different question, Commissioner. In the last 4 years, have we lost a little bit of ground on the fight against terrorism, especially domestically here? Have we let things go by that we shouldn't have, kind of being asleep at the wheel a little bit?
Well, listen, keep in mind the FBI's been busy. They've been busy targeting Donald Trump, been busy targeting, PTA members. They've been busy doing a bunch of things that, they shouldn't have been doing. Is that why they missed this? I don't know. But I can tell you, as of January 20th, there's going to be a very different administration in office, and that administration, I can assure you, is going to handle things differently.
If you were to be setting up if you were to be initiating the work to be addressing terrorism domestically for the Trump administration, what areas do you feel like you would want to deal with on day one? Is it logistics? Is it information gathering? Is it somehow intelligence like this slipping through the cracks? What would a Kerik operation look like if you were king for a day and could kind of start from scratch with a new Justice Department, new FBI, and say we're gonna fight terrorism the way it needs to be fought?
Well, I think the first thing that has to be done is you have to eliminate the DEI component of all law enforcement, not just the FBI, all law enforcement. We don't have room for, equity and diversity and all that garbage that these guys have tried to put into these agencies. That's number one. Number two, take the handcuffs off the police and the law enforcement agencies and let them go do the job they're sworn to do. That's most important. Number three, start getting the prosecutors in order to make sure that the prosecutors are doing their job and enforcing the law, not going out looking for, these political prosecutions. That's where we've lost an enormous amount of ground, focusing on political enemies. The FBI basically became a tool, a propaganda and an enforcement tool for the people in the White House over political issues. That's not the FBI's job. The FBI's job, they are basically federal cops that are supposed to go out and find bad guys and lock them up. They haven't been doing that.
Yeah.
That's got to be done, and that message has to come from the new director.
Well, I would hope that somebody would compel California to return to the Joint Terrorism Task Force as well, because a big sanctuary state like that, with no regard for who's coming in and not talking to anybody about what may be being developed there, that's been a very big concern for me since you and I had that conversation quite a few months ago.
Hey, Kev, I got to tell you, that's going to be every one of them. Every state. I would make sure you don't want our agency working in conjunction with your local and state law enforcement then don't come to the federal government for any kind of support.
Right.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. And you know that we like to check in with our friends at the America First Policy Institute. On radio, we do it at the first of the week. Here on TV, we do it frequently. And I am pleased to welcome the Senior Policy Advisor and the Center for Homeland Security and Immigration at AFPI, Jacob Olidort, who joins us for the first time. Jacob, welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's great to be with you and your viewers.
The president-elect campaigned as hard as anything on fixing immigration, making sure that the homeland is safe. There's people doubting it publicly because we have, drones flying over different parts of New England and the Northeast, and there's lots of other challenges. But I believe firmly that that is still his number one priority in terms of getting it under control. And we've seen even some response from the Mexican government and from the cartels themselves kind of admitting that it's going to be a harder task to get people across the border. What exactly is happening if you were to assess the status of where we are, say, right now, as to where we were, say, November 3rd?
Yeah. Well, I obviously only speak for myself and have no insight into what the plans are on January 20th. But, I think, and of course, as the saying goes, there is one president at a time. So we can be even more vulnerable in the next 36 days before then, depending on President Biden's decision making in that time and his team. But we're seeing, obviously, you mentioned the drone. Our homeland is indeed vulnerable right now from a number of adversaries, a number of vectors. Of course, the southern border, which, as you mentioned as well, is top of mind and obviously the top of the campaign platform, and obviously a position that he now has a popular vote, a mandate, a tremendous historical mandate to implement on. So all of the above obviously will need to be considered. And again, beginning with that vulnerable, porous open border at the bottom there in the south. But yeah, the drone as well. We have we still don't have any information forthcoming, any assurances from the Biden team about what is going on exactly, where these drones are.
Let me focus on the border for a second, because that we know at least a little bit more about. And Trump's mere presence of being president-elect and mere statements publicly seem to have worked a little bit of magic already. I know that the one president at a time policy holds, but the president of Mexico was kind of, I don't know, beating her chest and trying to growl like a bear. And he said, well, we'll just do tariffs. And she's like, oh, okay, how can I help? It seems like people take him much more seriously at his word than even the current resident of the White House.
Absolutely. I think, no doubt, the president's rhetoric, his actions and gestures, people understand that America is back right now, and they're preparing, they're bracing, and where you don't want to be is on the wrong side of America. And his positions, the policies are clear. The intent, the end state that we need, a secure border, secure American communities, is exactly what the American people need right now and what he is delivering to them. And so I think you're right. You see the president of Mexico, others step up, try to really play their role in participating even before he takes office. So all of that, of course, is tremendously important to developing and to reminding folks of the new team, the new atmosphere that will take place very soon here in about a month.
Part of the concern, I think, for a lot of voters was that it wasn't just Central and Latin American countries that were sending people to our southern border. The drone story continues to be interesting only because we don't really know much about it, and if it is a foreign power, I'm I've got security experts that are telling me they're concerned about how mum government has been and not really understanding, and maybe they don't understand the threat. But that aside, we know that there were Middle Easterners. We know that there were Chinese. We know that there were other people that were coming to the southern border since the election. Does the data show that those countries are still trying to penetrate us via that border, maybe taking a gasp chance in these final days before the inauguration?
Well, I hesitate to say anything conclusively, not having the data available at my fingertips, not being on the inside, of course. But you're absolutely right that our adversaries are working to plot in any which way they can. And you've seen, obviously, individuals on the terror watch list be apprehended at that border, and who knows how many have gotten away. The Chinese have sent their balloons, when was it? Several years ago, and we still don't really have a readout of how we took action at the end there. And then, of course, the Iranians remain plotting any which way.
Jacob Olidort, Senior Policy Advisor in the Center for Homeland Security and Immigration at the America First Policy Institute.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
And welcome back, Times Square. It's That Kevin Show. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. And if you have been paying attention over the last number of days, you have really seen the mainstream press exploit this little argument that's going on within the kind of pro-Trump arenas, and that is the debate over H-1 visas and what they mean and how it impacts the larger immigration question overall. And I think there's a lot to be unpacked here, because I'm not even sure I fully understand the rationale as to why people are so upset. But let's turn to America First Policy Institute's Rob Law, who covers immigration and various other things for AFPI and does a great job. Rob, welcome back, and Happy New Year. It's always fun to have people joining us, and you know how much I've appreciated AFPI in these last 4 years of wandering in the wilderness and needing somebody to be America First and give us the insights on that. So I've been really grateful for your entire organization. It seems as though Vivek and Elon set off a little bit of a tinderbox within the MAGA camp recently, and I'm curious why. Why is it that the H-1 visa discussion is so reactionary within the MAGA circles?
Well, thanks for having me on again, and Happy New Year as well. I think what you've seen with this debate over the H-1B visas really is it shows a healthy dialogue between, sort of the MAGA camp, the supporters of President Trump, that you actually have sort of competing views, and they're kind of hashing it out, maybe in a public setting. And you contrast that with the left, where there's just unanimous thinking across the board, and it has really led to sort of a corrosion of policy thought. So that being said, why do people care so much about the H-1B visa? Well, first off, what is the H-1B? This is supposed to be for high-skilled legal immigrants. But as I know from my time in the first term of President Trump, this visa category is very often used to replace white-collar American workers, particularly those in the tech sector. And so there's really a disconnect between some of the rhetoric where they talk about the best and the brightest and the highest skilled and highest paid, and the reality of the program. And so I think when you see on a platform like Twitter, you have an engaged community of professionals, American professionals, who see that this is a visa program that has been used to displace them or to suppress their wages over the years. And so, of course, that is going to generate a lot of enthusiastic, viewpoints. And then, of course, on the other side of that, you have businessmen like Elon Musk and Vivek, who, they frankly do benefit on on a bottom line by having a workforce that they can pay less than a qualified American. And so that's sort of where you see the two sides are really coming at it from a position of what's to their particular, advantageous benefit on the issue.
Was the H-1B created expressly to give corporations a pay scale leverage against American labor? I mean, it seems to me that if it's as simple as it's a tool that they're using to make Americans earn less, that President Trump would be naturally against it, at least from his America First kind of viewpoint. He's kind of the author of America First in some ways. So people would think that he would be naturally opposed to it, but he's said that he's not necessarily opposed to it. So is it being used improperly, or was it designed improperly?
Well, it's a great question. It was designed improperly, but that doesn't mean you cannot solve the problem. So right now, the biggest shortcoming of the H-1B visa is there's 4 different tiers of skills, which then have an associated wage level. And right now, that means that because of where those wage levels are set, you can legally underpay a foreign worker to do the same job that an American could do. And to your point, President Trump cares very much, if you remember, the Buy American and Hire American executive order. During his first term, we actually implemented a number of H-1B specific policies in 2020 to really upskill the program, ensure that it was going to the highest paid and the most qualified. So it's a better use of these visas instead of the lowest skilled ones. And we also tried to increase that prevailing wage. That's what it's called, is the amount of that you can pay them. And the Biden administration tossed all of those rules and policies out the door.
Oh. See, now this has not been something that's been widely discussed in the media, and I think you're making news here by saying it. 2 things that I want my listeners to be aware of. One, that Trump saw some of the weaknesses of the H-1 program and used executive action to kind of beef it up, as what you just described, Rob, and that in the aftermath of the Trump administration, the Biden people threw all of those things out. So Trump could do the same thing again. He could make the H-1 more truly competitive and not as harmful to the American worker, and still maintain the ability to draw on a talent pool that might be better and brighter than what we have to pick from.
Well, that's absolutely right. And by doing so and actually imposing a merit-based, H-1B program, you're really, not only are you upskilling it, but it's a far more efficient use of these 85,000 work visas on an annualized basis. But right now, over 90% of them are going to level 1 workers. That's basically like a data entry job.
That's not what they were designed for.
That's not what they were designed for. And so again, if you are actually maximizing it to, every time you hear this debate, you talk about, oh, well, this Einstein or this brilliant PhD. Well, those are just not the people that are winning them, because right now they're being distributed through a random lottery, which is a terrible decision to do so. It's bureaucratically easy.
That's not in the intent of how they were created.
Exactly. And that's why during President Trump's first term, we got rid of the lottery and we imposed a top to bottom selection process. So if you're that highest skilled, highest paid foreign worker and you're a business that's identified that worker, you're going to get one of those valuable H-1Bs for that. And that is exactly how it is. It's supposed to be something that supplements the American workforce, not supplants them as a cheaper alternative, usually at the lower end of the white collar, industry.
Well, this is really important that we had this conversation, because what I'm hearing through most of the rest of the media is a configuration of the facts, and they're just kind of lumping them all together, and they're not really making much clarity out of any of it. And I don't think Vivek and Elon are making the case as easily as you just did that Trump will use it with executive actions attached to it, can use it to actually strengthen the American workforce and create incentive, which when you think about him bringing foreign companies and companies that were operating in foreign countries back home to the U.S. and even incentivizing foreign companies to come and build here, that's exactly how he did it. He made it more incentivized to make the American workforce more advantaged, and those companies that did that benefited the most. And that's what we have to do on this issue as well. But no one's telling us that part, Rob.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from his Votes-for-Damas.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, a heartwarming story of triumph over tragedy, Payton McNabb. Plus, the Year in Parody song review from Ben Holderness. And the #1 song of the year in the spotlight. And now, from Times Square, the only man in America who had hoped that the election for Speaker of the House would have gone to one more ballot, because then it would have been his chance, baby. Here's that Kevin!
For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. You know, nothing starts your new year off like, getting off on the right foot. And MSNBC host Lawrence O'Donnell said this week that he would try to do that by insulting all those who served in our armed forces. In fact, he went so far as to say this week that former members of the U.S. Army are more likely to be terrorists than those crossing our southern border. Nice. O'Donnell, sitting in a comfy studio that was secured for him by the shed blood of many former U.S. Army members, compared the actions of an Islamic radical named Jabbar and some dude named Timothy McVeigh to the 20 million who have crossed in the last year or 4 years. Evidently, O'Donnell doesn't think that child trafficking, border cartels, or murder for land amount to terrorism. Not to mention the thousands of those that are on the actual terror watch list that we have caught and brought into custody. Nice. Those who have formed companies to train new companies on how to do DEI are going out of business due to the lack of demand. It's what happens when your services are no longer needed. Some are blaming Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for all of this because he passed the Stop Woke law in his state. Assignment Desk Weekend asks you to imagine how sad your prospects must be if you go hungry because the company you made for an imaginary cause ran out of business because people caught on to the scam that you were pushing so hard. In fact, so hard that all the DEI consultants who no longer can get to the Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton scam that they would like to pull. Nancy Pelosi, pictured here, smiling because she was able to reinsert her dentures all on her own, got to answer for her embarrassingly brutal video that she posted on social media this week. When asked why the Congresswoman posted it, she simply answered that she had to post it in order for the people to know what was in it after it was posted. Sounds familiar. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
Basement toilet flappers came to your porch today. You put the empty box on the table there. You didn't throw it away because it's a pretty good box. You look at me like you want to go out. I open the door, you don't go out. I close the door, you stay right there. I go to the couch, you sit and stare. Remember this one thing, when life feels like a mess, you can do it because you're Chanel. Public water fountain. You'll be drinking water very hard. Across the nation, in a invasion. Oh yeah, Sakeda, Sakeda. I don't like it when the car parks on my street. Years old, I can't watch a TV show without subtitles. Years old, there's ads on my purse, my car, my bedroom, and my kitchen. Years old, it's a middle-aged starter kid. A color-coded bill box. Gotta have a Farragut. A coffee decaffeinated. It's a middle-aged starter kid. Why did I come into this room? I cannot remember that far back. Where are all the forks? It is a question that lingers. It's an empty box, it's got nothing in it. Just throw it away, it's got nothing in it. Nobody touching the feet, nobody stealing the sheets, cause she is sleeping by herself. Why did you call me Ohio? Man, I cannot tell if you're being complimentary. Man, I need some help. Now it's not heat, it's humidity. So everybody keep an eye on me, cause I'm gonna need a saline IV, cause it feels so sticky, humidity. Ain't nothing but a leaf thing, buddy. Got a decorative door that's ugly. This squirrel on my desk is nutty. Pumpkin spice is the type of my blood, see. You're going on a trip, only 2 days you'll be there. Why did you just pack 30 pairs of underwear? She's showing off a little shoulder, but then a cloud made it colder. Where is my coffee now? I will be right here waiting for food. If you Google the Immaculate Constellation, they will put you on a watch list for our nation. But no one's caring, I'm here wearing a tin hat, tin hat. Pumpkins, y'all, really weird scarecrow dog. This is haunting my dreams. It's not okay, cause it's July. It's flipping July, y'all. She goes shopping, she keeps the bag. She gets a gift, she keeps the bag. If it fits up and looks okay, she never gonna throw that bag away. Binge it till dawn. Disney, Hulu, Amazon Prime.
I want a freaking medal. There was a super basic need and I met it.
There's 15 decorated pillows. Hello, darkness, smile.
If you want a vision of the future, imagine the boot of a singular chosen celebrity stamping on the human face forever.
Attention citizens of the United Districts of North America. Taylor has completed the recording of her latest musical work. Taylor has decreed that if your sector's work output is in the 90th percentile this month, you will each be allotted exactly 1 minute and 30 seconds of listening time.
Thank you, Taylor! I live for you, Taylor! I live for you!
There are thought criminals among us that assert Taylor is not absolutely perfect in everything that she creates. That she is not perfect in all her decisions for society. Tell me, what are your true feelings towards Taylor?
Honestly, I think she's just okay at best.
It is not enough to merely obey Taylor. You must love her, even above your own life.
I found a journal where my great-grandfather claimed that generations ago there was all kinds of different music made by all kinds of different people.
Other music? You sound like a fool. Taylor invented music. No one else even knows how to make it.
Here, listen to this.
I ain't saying she a gold woman, but she ain't messing with the broke.
Beautiful. I know. How could they take this from us? Oh no.
immensely oppressed while dictating nearly all of society at the same time. Does it make sense?
Stop it! These thoughts are illegal and you know it! I don't care if they're illegal! Does it make sense to you?
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show. You know that on a regular basis, I love to speak with the contributors from the Independent Women's Forum for a variety of reasons. One of which I think that having those conversations helped move the needle in the election last November. And hopefully we are about to see a whole swath of things that are going to be of more benefit to women across the country than where the last administration has left them. Let's leave it at that. One of those people that we spoke with last year is a young lady by the name of Payton McNabb. And if you were with us, you may remember a rather dramatic story. That story has now been put into the form of a documentary, and you can see it at iwfeatures.com. IW Features is where you can go. But Payton rejoins us here at That Kevin Show. Payton, I think the last time you talked to us, you were on what was it called? The Title IX bus tour?
Yeah, the Take Back Title IX bus tour with Independent Women's Forum and so many other amazing groups.
Talk about the stars that you had on that bus with you.
Yeah, we had quite a few. Of course, we had Riley Gaines and Selena Soul and Paula Scanlon. So many other people that we got big faces on the bus, and we just got to travel around the country. And
wasn't
really
Martina Navratilova part of that tour as well?
She was. Yeah, she came to the DC stop, so that was really awesome getting to see her. And
which brings together kind of the full impetus of what we're talking about here, because Martina Navratilova and I probably wouldn't agree politically on much of anything. Like, she's been, pretty active in progressive circles for a long time. But this issue of women's safety in sports and women's safety in private spaces has formed a coalition of people that may disagree on a lot of other things, but on this, you guys are standing together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what's been really beautiful about this problem in particular, because it's brought together so many people. This is a common sense issue. It's not a partisan issue, even though it's been framed like that this whole time. But I think we've had all kinds of strong people from the other side that were willing to stand up for women, and a lot of people on the Republican side that weren't. So I think that really just showed that this issue was bigger than politics. It is about women, and I think all kinds of people were just a big show in that.
Yeah. Well, I was a big supporter of your entire bus tour, and all of the girls that were on that bus. I just think every one of you demonstrate great courage, not just in having survived whatever you've gone through, but then having to go on this tour and speak out about it and to say, hey, it's really wrong. But at the heart of this issue is a story for nearly every woman that is involved. And yours involved a very dramatic injury suffered while playing volleyball. And I want people to understand that, because this year on the college level, San Diego State University has had a male volleyball player playing on the female team, and I believe endangering women like Payton in future games. And there have been several schools that forfeit against them, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess my point is this is not gone away. We have not fixed it, and we still need to be speaking out. out. But Payton, I'm getting ahead of myself. Go back for people that weren't with us the first time you were here and just relay what happened on that fateful day.
Yeah, so this was roughly 2 years ago, the beginning of my senior year. I went into a conference.
In high school. This was high school.
Yes. And we went into our conference game against this guy, and I was trying to be positive and motivating, being one of the team captains, but even our coaches knew we were just practicing differently in order to at least get a hand on the ball. I mean, the ball was coming faster than any other girl that we'd went up against. So we were having to practice and prepare differently in order to play against this guy. So I'm trying to go into it, whatever. I end up getting knocked out unconscious for about 30 seconds by one of his spikes. It comes down right in my face. And I was out for about, like I said, 30 seconds. And when I came back to, they quickly rushed me off the court, asked me if, what just happened to me. I said, the boy on y'all's team hit me in the face. My adrenaline is rushing. My parents weren't there. No one knew what to do. I mean, my team was terrified. We had to get a freshman setter to go in and finish the game for me. They didn't take him out, of course, because that's the only reason they were winning games. So, it was a horrible situation. Being from rural North Carolina, we never thought we would be dealing with it. So we had no idea what to do. I mean, 99% of our team did not agree with this. And that was pretty much the common thought for our whole area, but we didn't know what to do. So, yeah, I went to the doctor and they told me that I had whiplash or permanent whiplash, a TBI, and a concussion, like a small brain bleed. And that comes with a lot of different things. It's been a little over 2 years and I'm still not fully recovered. I've had partial paralysis on my right side, problems with my vision, trouble comprehending stuff in school, and now I'm forced to get accommodations to even be able to get through school, which has not been common for me. I've always been top of my class, but yeah, these are things I'm still having to struggle with, and it's just so aggravating because it was 100% avoidable and should have never happened to begin with.
The injury to your brain, is the damage permanent? What have the doctors told you about what happened to you?
Yeah, the doctors told me that they don't really know. I mean, they do know, but with head injuries, it just takes so long to heal, and it's kind of just like however it plays out. I mean, they don't know if I'll ever be 100% to where I was. Thankfully, the Lord has blessed me a lot this far, so hopefully I do get there, but you really just don't know because brain injuries can take a long time.
Yeah. Well, at the very minimum, and I say the very minimum because this is one of those things where we are thankful that it didn't didn't go any worse. But at the very bare minimum, you've lost 2 years of, life in some functional reality, including your love for sports and being physically active and being able to do the things that when you were doing them against girls, you never gave it two thoughts about being, endangering your brain or your future life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 2 years that, again, was completely avoidable. I mean, that was my senior year. I've worked my whole life at sports. I was a 3-sport athlete. As soon as I could walk, we were put in a sport, and I loved them. They're literally all of my memories, all of my friends, all the trips we've went on. Everything's been revolved around some kind of sport. So I was so excited to end my high school career. I had the hopes of going into college and playing, but because of this injury, I couldn't perform the way I had in the past, and all of that was over.
All right. Yeah. There's so much wrong about this, friends. Those of you watching and listening, I want you to go over to iwfeatures.com. That's the Independent Women Forum's place where they're putting their documentary films now, but iwfeatures.com, and look up the story of Payton McNabb. We're going to talk with her a little bit more on the other side of this break.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. It's Kevin McCullough, Times Square, That Kevin Show, and speaking with Payton McNabb, who I think is just one of the bravest people that I've had a chance to talk to and interview in the last year. And she's back with us again because her story has been turned into a documentary that you can now see for yourself at iwfeatures.com. It's about 15 minutes in length. We're going to play a sample of it for you here in just a couple of minutes. But before we do that, Payton, and before I say goodbye, I wanted to ask you one other question as it related to your story. Your parents appear in this, particularly your mom, and she is particularly emotional. This didn't just impact you. This didn't just impact your team. This impacted your family and those who love you. How are they dealing with the reality of what happened to you?
Exactly. I think this documentary just was a great way to really show everything that you said. This story was much bigger than myself, and it affected my entire family, my community, my area, and our lives are just completely different. I mean, it has been hard for my family, and I think you really just got to see that, and it really highlights how emotional this is, and hopefully it encourages other parents to stand up for their daughter and her safety, and just show that it's okay to say something and back up your kid, because these are basic rights that we should have. And I think that documentary just did a great job. IW did an amazing job showing the full thing, and I think it really just highlighted how much bigger it is.
How is your mom doing now? How have they dealt with your incapacitation on some level?
It's definitely hard for them. They've gotten a lot better with it now, but they're just trying from where it was at first, but it's still hard for them. I mean, they try to make it seem like everything's normal, but it's not, and it's hard to kind of hide that. So I think it's been hard on our family, but we're able to talk about it better now and kind of deal with it in a better way.
This documentary is not for the faint of heart. It actually shows the shot that Payton took and what has basically ended her ability currently to even play sports. So I would caution you as you watch it, just be aware of that. But let's take a look at a piece of this documentary right now. It's called Kill Shot: How Payton McNabb Turned Tragedy into Triumph.
Started getting messages, and I started getting phone calls and texts were coming in that, hey, Payton's been hit. She's hurt pretty bad. So when I'm not gonna be able to do this. My first thoughts was, is she okay? And then my second, I was mad. I was furious because we all knew this was gonna happen. Did I think it would happen to my child? No. But we all knew. Everybody talked about it. Everybody knew something was going to happen, and it did, and I was mad.
It's hard for me to watch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you remember from that?
It was just very, very traumatizing. A couple years ago, I was severely injured in a high school volleyball game by a male on the opposing team, leaving me with permanent injuries that the doctors don't know if I'll ever be able to recover from. On September 1st, 2022, I went into this game knowing that there was a man on the other team, but felt helpless and had no idea what to do. Neither I or my team or my administration agreed that we should be playing against a man, but at the time, again, this was 2 years ago, and we had no idea what to do. The game's almost over, and he goes up to spike the ball, and it comes right at me in the face, completely knocking me out, unconscious for about 30 seconds. while my body was in a fencing position on the floor, which is just how your body reacts to a brain injury. After I got hit, the whole gym went completely silent. There was one person that screamed, apparently, and then everyone just went silent, because it's not like everyone doesn't know. Like, we know that this is the guy. We're just going to stop pretending that it's not.
All right, that's called Kill Shot, How Payton McNabb Turned Tragedy into Triumph. It's featured right now at iwfeatures.com. You want to make a difference in this effort to protect women, then get involved. You can't just sit on the sideline and expect things to change.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back, Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you with us. It's That Kevin Show. And we started telling you last week about a tremendous partnership with my new sponsor, Movement Mortgage. And there's a lot of reasons why I want you to know what they're doing. But more than anything, I want you to know how it can help you. And that is why I've asked Harlan Accola to be back with us today. Harlan, it's good to see you.
Great to be here. Thank you, Kevin.
Let's talk about interest rates. We're at the end of the year. There's a new administration coming into town, and there's a lot of speculation about what that means to mortgage rates.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that people are going to have to get used to higher interest rates for a longer period of time. We don't anticipate, although things can always change, we don't anticipate things changing very much throughout most of 2025. And I've had all kinds of clients call and say, hey, the interest rates went down last week. The problem is that whenever the Federal Reserve comes out, the expectation of what they were going to do has already been factored into interest rates. So interest rates actually went up a little bit because he basically said, you get a cut in December and you're not getting any next year. It didn't say it exactly that way, but that was kind of the scenario because they do anticipate a little bit of inflation. So we don't see a major change in interest rates. And it's kind of, you want to make decisions based on what they are now, because they probably are not going to go down much for next year. Now that I've said that, they probably will.
Well, let me ask a very practical question off of that, because I'm the ultimate pragmatist. If we're trying to get a hold of our finances and our financial planning, and we want to be good stewards of what we're doing, if mortgage rates aren't improving, then there may not, getting a new mortgage may be not the answer. And in fact, keeping the mortgage you have may not be the answer. So if now was the time to take a fresh look at what's called a reverse mortgage, what would you advise people?
Well, if you're on let's go to the forward side first. If you're looking at delaying buying a home because interest rates are high, you shouldn't, because all you're going to do is continue paying somebody else's mortgage. If you've already got to my age bracket and you've got a little gray hair and you're over 62, it is very important to understand that interest rates are not going to go down. Your payment's not going to go down. And there was just a new study that came out last week that says over 50% of people my age, age that you're getting to in a few years, are still making a mortgage payment. The danger of making a mortgage payment. When my dad retired in 1981, less than 10%, I think it was 5% of the people had a mortgage payment. Now, more than 50% do. That is not a wise thing from a stewardship standpoint. What happens if you pass away and you leave behind your spouse with this mortgage payment that was easy to make when there was two of you, not so much when there's one of you. And so the number of people that are still making mortgage payments, once they've reached the age of 62, when they can reverse their mortgage and make their mortgage payment optional, if you want to make a mortgage payment, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to, is the wisest thing to do, and also the smartest thing to do from a stewardship standpoint. Way too few people people are looking at that option and they continue making the mortgage payment because that's the way they've always done it, and they're just used to doing it that way.
Well, I want to give people an opportunity to respond and get some of your resources for this. And friends, if you want to call Harlan directly, his number is 209-702-0007, 209-702-0007. And there's also a website that you can just click on and request information, and they'll send it to you as well. And it's easy to remember, thathomecash.com, thathomecash.com. And you just put in your info and they'll send you information that Harlan's talking about today. But Harlan, I want you to break it down for us a little bit more, because the statistic you just gave is, I think it should light people's hair on fire. I don't have a lot left, so I can't say it would light mine on fire. But to know that in one generation, from your parents to you, that the number of people, the percentage of people that are still making mortgage payments after age 62 is astounding. And what you're actually telling us is that this little tool, this financial tool, a reverse mortgage, would change the game plan for them in a big time way. Can you walk through the practicality of how that works?
Yeah, so think about it this way, Kevin. For years and years and years, you put money into Social Security, you put money into your IRAs, you put money into all of these different sacks, so to speak, of money that you're going to need in the future. People have also put thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands in many cases into their home. All a reverse mortgage does is once you get past the 50% equity scenario in your house, and you have just talked to somebody this morning, they got a $500,000 house and they owe $120,000. They've been making mortgage payments for the last 5 years that they don't have to make. They've already reached the required amount. So once you get past that 50% equity standpoint, and once you are over the age of 62, you can reverse your mortgage and make all your payments optional. Can make payments if you wish, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. Everybody is used to a forward mortgage that requires payments for 15 years, 30 years, 20 years, whatever time you have left in your mortgage. But with a reverse mortgage, we simply say, hey, if you want to send in a payment, that's great. And if you don't want to, we'll just put it on the tab and you can pay for it a year after you're dead, or at any point along the way when you want to make a payment, but not when you have to. And life happens in retirement.
Right.
And a lot of people end up retiring, not being in a situation where they can afford to make a payment. And even if you can afford to make a payment, isn't there more fun things to do? Like go on vacation with your kids, or maybe get that car that you really wanted for a long time, whatever the situation, or give more money to your kids, your grandkids, or the causes that you believe in. Way too many people are sending money when they are no longer required to do that, and it's simply a mistake. And most people just don't know. They should just check into it. I'm going
to guarantee you that there's a whole bunch of people hearing us say that for the first time, and they've never even heard that concept. You'd never have to pay your mortgage payment again. That's rattling around in their head right now because it's still reverberating. And friend, I just would encourage you, as you're listening, if you want more information, Harlan's team is the very best in the entire business at this. And by the way, there's all kinds of info about reverse mortgages. Some of it's good, some of it's not good, some of it's false, some of it's true. If you want to know the truth, I know and trust the Movement Mortgage people. I've known Harlan now for a good little period. I'm telling you, these people are going to take good care of you, and you're going to be glad that you reached out to them. The number is 209-702-0007, 209-702-0007, 209-702-0007, or go to thathomecash.com.